And welcome everybody to April's Reading Club, Fostering Transparent Communication and Collaborative Learning. This is our April offering. I'm so glad to have you here. And if you are watching the recording, thank you so much for doing so. As you probably know, this is an ongoing offering from the Light Center, and our aim is to share at least one article, insights, apps, tools, and resources every month in our series. This is part of our 2025 professional development initiatives. Please do complete our survey. Your feedback is absolutely valuable. I always like to drop the survey early in the session so that you have access to it. I will share it towards the end, but please do make sure that you have that handy and that you do complete that. Your feedback allows us to develop our programming for you, our faculty, and your engagement is greatly appreciated. Little side note, today we're going to be talking about the article. Of course, we're going to be talking about fostering transparent communication and collaborative learning. We'll be sharing our experiences, our challenges, and solutions. And then I'll share a little bit about upcoming Light Center and OFA, Office of Faculty Affairs events for you all. But first, do keep in mind that please keep your microphone muted until you are ready to speak. We are recording, we do record all of our sessions for viewing later. And if you have any questions or comments, please do put those in the chat box. These slides and the recording will be available in the next PD to Go newsletter, which you will receive probably tomorrow because we're here at the end of our month. So you will see that very, very soon. But first, our article. And don't worry if you haven't had a chance to read the article. We always welcome everyone, whether or not you've had an opportunity to read the article. I'm going to go ahead and pop the article into the chat right now. Let's see. Hopefully it loads. Okay, so you should have access to that article. And specifically, if you did have a chance to read the article, what are your thoughts on the article? Were there any findings in the article that resonate with your current teaching practices? And do you have any criticisms of the article itself? Feel free to take a few minutes.
It all went down to the sample. I don't disagree with any of the findings, but these are students that are highly motivated in their specific areas, and they reminded me, when I was in college, dinosaurs roamed the earth. I get that, but we would we actually had study groups for topics. I mean, you see this even in movies and so forth, from even Legally Blonde, where students would get together. It seemed a lot like that, and there's a lot of good when the groups are motivated, then it just makes a lot of sense. These are a very selected group for very selected topics. So the findings didn't surprise me at all. When students are motivated and they see the motivation of being in groups, I have no doubt that, in fact, I would imagine, considering those groups, I doubt they were only in one group together. You know what I mean? That it's like,
right,
when you're in that particular field, you're in each other's classes. You don't have like a class with somebody. You've seen them a lot more in other classes and so forth. You're more familiar with it, because I'm just hearkening back to my undergraduate studies, and by the time I was a junior, we were in the same study groups, we had the same people, and we were all but we were also motivated. You didn't see people, that's the hard part when it's applying to Westcliff, because most of our students wouldn't be there if they didn't have to. So, and they're painfully off. That's why they don't do the required reading beforehand. Getting that done is, think about, we talked about this before, how all of us, our teaching would be completely different. The class would be different if they just did that. If they just did all the required reading before class. These groups are, I guarantee, are doing all the things that are necessary beforehand.
Anybody else? There's definitely some of that element, exactly, Dr. Johnson, very much so in line. I was thinking kind of the same thing. It's like, it's nice to have these groups. I do feel like there was a little bit of that trust and that safety and that collaboration already kind of built into the groups before the researchers started working with them. I still liked the themes that kind of came out of their work with the students. And so I'm going to share a little bit of that for anybody who hasn't had a chance to read the article. And really, I think, we are so unique at Westcliff that being able to kind of tease out, okay, what could work for us? What could, our classes go fast, our students
Well,
have maybe different motivations. Go ahead.
let me ask you a question. Why does it, because other schools have done this, why don't we do it more cohort? Because the
Mm,
cohorts, I know that I was in a school that did cohort, and by the third class, think the teams were gelling, if you know what I mean. The teamwork.
yeah.
In fact, you didn't want to let your teammates down because again, you have a greater familiarity with it rather than every class is a bunch of strangers. Why doesn't Westcliff even like pilot something like that?
Any
Joni,
theories?
you're the one that can make that happen.
I cannot. I was gonna say I don't know. I gotta manage
You're the one with all the
magic.
power.
I will escalate that idea all the way up the chain, and then they will say, "Go back to your light center and do your job." No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding for anybody watching the recording. No, I do love a cohort. I was actually really surprised. Because the class sizes are so small at Westcliff. I don't know if anybody else. Feel free to pop into the chat if you don't want to unmic. Would a cohort work in your college? Would a cohort work? And we kind of see these kind of like mini cohorts developing when I talk to James Jones is in here today, but when I talk to him about Pro Weekend, those students get
Yeah.
really tight really quick, and they yield amazing results, and the faculty feel motivated and the students feel motivated, and there's this wonderful relationship. But I think that's something that all of you should consider, as you attend your college meetings, as you attend senate meetings, as you go to faculty lounge, like share this idea, because that's something that would be a game changer. Maybe not throughout all of the program, but if that's something that even a small selection of students could experience, we definitely see the benefits um, in research articles like this one, right?
Even especially in the beginning,
Mhm,
like if let's say if you're in a MBA class and
mhm,
there's a bunch of classes that y'all got to take.
right.
So how about cohort just the first four classes? Because if they are, that would set them up for the rest.
Yeah.
They'll have those natural those natural groups that they will have developed over the first 4 or 5 courses as well. Just a thought. And I know again, you can make that happen. You are Joni Mitchell.
Magical. Those of you who teach at other institutions, like, do you see that happening? I know in my grad program, it happened very organically. They didn't sign us up with that intention, but again, because our first like 6 classes were required and we were all
Right.
trying to finish on time, we all saw each other that whole time. And then the only thing that got weird was at one point in the program, like the new fall semester started, so the new group came in and they had to like gel with us all. So there was like some like mini conflict in that. I do remember that, but we're, we're in the social sciences, so we get rowdy like that. But I think, do any of you kind of see in your classes, either with not necessarily in a graduate program if you don't teach in a graduate program, because when you were talking, Dr. Johnson, I thought about new student orientation. NSO is scheduled like clockwork at Westcliff, and that's like a great opportunity. Those of you who work in different areas, what are your ideas around this? And we're just, imagining, sharing good ideas. Professor Amory said, "Sorry, late for joining. I missed the article." Oh, yes. Oh, thank you for asking. Yes, of course. Let me put the article back in here. If you joined if you joined a little bit
Thank you
later, let
so
me throw it
much,
back in the cat.
Dr.
Oh, no
Gigi.
problem. You bet. Thank you for reminding me. Dr. Kaufman, you don't have to raise your hand. Just unmute and go.
You're recording, so I want to be very official here. Um, in my master's program, we did a cohort, and we stayed in teams, and we worked all the way through. There are pluses and minuses. Okay, the pluses are, yes, you do gel, and there is a social responsibility that builds without question. The downside is you can only have so large of a cohort, right? And there are certain capabilities that other teams had that we didn't actually take advantage, we couldn't take advantage of, right? I mean, to some extent, because we were responsible, and the structure of the courses were done that. I'm a big fan of something called X teams, and that is to say that you have a core, but that you develop a cadence and a set of norms that says we can bring in new members, okay, and that you bring in these experts who have expertise in different fields, right? And you figure out a way to utilize these different resources. That I've yet to see that be done. Um, uh, and I think it would be something that, particularly in teaching the MBAs, there's a lot of students who have a tremendous amount of information, right? It is not unusual. And I found this during my MBA, I found this during my doctorate, and I find it at Westcliff and where I teach at other universities. There are individuals who have, particularly at the graduate level, they have 5 to 10 years of business in some cases, in which they may have more expertise in a very specific area than the teacher, including myself in some cases, right? And therefore, in creating these types of cohorts, if you could make them porous so that the teams could work together, and you do enough work initially to find out the strengths of those team members, not just within your own cohort, but within each of the team's cohorts, and you develop a way to cross-pollinate. That, to me, would be probably the more optimal solution. But you would need organizational support. You would need curriculum support so that, you take advantage of that. And that ultimately, I think that's really how businesses should run. But, that said, we all work in silos and, sinkholes, right? So you've got to, if everything worked that easily, it would be great. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Dr. Kaufman. Really great point. Professor Brody said, in this case, I usually ask the students what they wanted to learn in the class and ask them to put it on, so they develop the agenda. Can you elaborate, Professor Brody?
No, the point here, hello everyone. The point here is within the syllabus, within the text, so what point you want me to concentrate on? So basically I reach out because I'm a good teacher and you are good students. Tell me what you want me to talk about more. And I concentrate on those areas. As Dr. Christopher said correctly, they may have a lot of more experience than I do in certain areas, but certainly in other areas I have it. So I just go concentrate on my in that areas that they have more need to learn in that area.
Very helpful. Really, that student focus, right? And then you're dealing with things that are relevant. All of these are really great points in terms of the cohort structure. There's always these things it feels like that are kind of out of our power, but then we can always kind of pull from it and see what we can put into our control. And that's really good. I don't know how many of you are going over your syllabus with your students in that to that level of detail, right? I've taken classes and go ahead.
And also, I also set like a baseline. Okay, where are you in this subject right now? Are you from 1 to 10? Are you 5, 6, 7? And by the end of the class, okay, where are you? Are you 6, 7? You are 2, 3, or you are 8, 9, right?
So there's that element of self-reflection, which is really important for our students to do. Yeah, that's lots of good tidbits there. We are going to continue to talk about this, so do let me know if you have any thoughts. Just going to share a couple of the main ideas that I pulled from the article, many of which you've already mentioned. Student autonomy, right? Making sure the tasks are relevant, that task relevance increase motivation. Creating challenging and complex tasks tended to drive deeper learning, but as Dr. Johnson pointed out, they were already really motivated in their subject area. So I'm not saying that that's like, oh, go make everything as challenging as possible. The students in the article had very specific needs and very specific focus. Shared ownership of the work, strengthen their engagement. That was something that we definitely saw in the article. And then developing that positive interdependence tended to reduce the freeloaders in the groups. And it speaks to what Dr. Johnson, Dr. Kaufman are talking about in terms of how do we not only have cohorts, but when you get that next wave, you're not like the sharks and the jets. Like really think about that one, Dr. Johnson. West Side Story reference. Mainly, they were talking about two specific things, design and process. So this is where it gets tricky with Westcliff, right? Because don't necessarily have control over course content and course design. You can give feedback on it, but you're not necessarily, redesigning and building and changing your syllabus. I love the tips in terms of focusing on specific topics or maybe even bringing in supplemental information. For those of you who don't know, I've seen it now a couple of times this year where we've had to remind faculty, hey, please don't change anything in GAP except that you can add resources in GAP. So as you do, resources, the one item that you can add in GAP that will not change the grade book at all. And you can post things in your announcements, actually. Were you going to say something, Dr. Johnson? Nope. Good. Okay. So in terms of the design factors, these were anything that faculty did that increased higher levels of autonomy. Again, adding challenge to specific tasks, making sure that you had real world application in your tasks. And this happens a lot. I actually have had quite a few faculty, the first time they teach a class, new faculty will come back and say, hey, how do I give feedback on this course? Because some of this is outdated. And we kind of walk through that process. Of course, you always want to do your end of course surveys, but you can always shoot a direct email to your program chairs. Does change happen overnight? No, but that's why we kind of take these other steps in terms of adding resources to your courses and adding, giving your students supplemental information that kind of builds on the information in a relevant and meaningful way to them. And then, of course, anything that you can do to create shared ownership of the group's outcomes. Process factors, let's see, what did I note here? Really how you roll out your group work, how you roll out tasks, how you roll out anything that's collaborative. It doesn't have to be a long-term group, where I know we're talking and looking at long-term groups, but really even just a group that they have that day for that class. How you encourage mutual support and kind of promote interaction. And that brings me to my next slide. I'm sorry, I'm a little slow this morning. I'm a little bit congested. But really, just a few quick tips here for you. Set clear norms for teamwork, including how to ask for help. Never assume that your students know how to connect in groups. And this is so important at a university like ours, where we have the level of diversity that we are so fortunate to have. But really understand that from day one, students need to know, okay, what does it look like to work in groups? What is the expectation? If your students are coming to you before they go to their group, if you are doing a group task, or their classmates, I've had amazing faculty and leaders who are like, you know what, ask your classmate first. Before you email me, if you miss a day of class or whatever the case may be, get the email of your classmates, right? From the first day, and being able to kind of, show and model for them how they can develop that interdependence even before you get to those group projects. Once standards are set, encourage self-organization that you observe and facilitate. So this is sometimes, it kind of goes back to the flipped classroom or other models that you might be using. The idea of the instructor as a facilitator instead of, sage on the stage is really important. And this is another example of why. Normalize constructive feedback and peer evaluation. We hear over and over again just how scared our students are of each other. And I don't know why. But we do hear a lot of times they're very shy sometimes to give each other feedback, to share ideas, to disagree with one another. And maybe fear is not the right word, reluctant anyway. And allow students to make meaningful decisions whenever possible. When you can Add agency, like Professor Brody was talking about, when you can get them to think very deeply about their learning and what they want to achieve. If there's decisions within that that you can allow for and support, that's going to make them more motivated. Keep groups small, 3 to 5 students, and reinforce the value of the process over the product. This was a big one. We know that you're here for a grade, right? When you're with your students, you know that they're there for a grade. But discussion, reflection activities, and student feedback and peer feedback should also be really valuable, ways that you can add value to reinforce that value of the process. Dr. Kaufman said, oh, thank you for that link. Perfect. Let me open that right now because I like to save. I learned so much from you all, so I always like to save as much as I can. Professor Brito said so true. They're scared of each other and they're afraid to disagree. Yeah. And then you lose that connection. Like, how do we disagree with one another and still support each other in our learning? It's quite possible.
Yes.
Dr. Johnson. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, perfect example. In this previous class, well, this one that just passed, I had students that just declined to work in a group because group members were using ChatGPT, they weren't doing things correctly, and so they had to go solo. But they didn't realize this until week 5. So it was, yeah, I had some challenges in this last course.
When you say they were using ChatGPT, what do you mean? Like they were taking their
Plagiarism.
part? Oh, okay. They were just taking whatever part of the assignment that was their part
Yes.
and throwing it in ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, I did my work." Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I mean, how do you develop trust between your group mates when that's what they're giving you? Oh,
Right.
that's
Because
amazing.
in my courses, I don't allow ChatGPT. And I explain to the students that ChatGPT, came to the forefront in 2022. So they've done without it before then.
Right.
And they came this far, so they can continue to do without it. But there are some that they just think they could disguise it, or I won't recognize it.
I want to add something to that. I work at all of us, we work at a bunch of universities, we're
Sure.
gypsies. And but one of the universities has an absolute zero tolerance for, if you have an AI score above 35, it's a 0. They don't let you do redos. And what's interesting on that is, like, this last week, I don't have anybody. The AI scores are 0 constantly. And I want to add something else to it. This other university allows teachers to make their own policy as long as they post it. And to show you how, because when I was in school, if you were late, it was 0. Nobody gave you any extension for anything. And so I started doing that. I started doing okay, you're late, it's a 0. I never get any late papers. So it seems like whatever we allow, everybody's always pushing the envelope. And again, if with regard to the AI usage, if it was you're going to get a 0, there is no tolerance for it. It would be interesting to see the reaction, because I'm seeing it in another university where the students have figured it out, and how not to get it. I mean, I understand that it's hard because there's more things added to it. Like if you use Microsoft 365p, you got to go into the click and find the editor link, and so you got to unclick it. I mean, I get that. I'm not trying to say that that's what our policy should be, but it does demonstrate human behavior on this. As far as, if you allow it, then what is that drop dead point with it? I
Yes,
just want to add
yes,
that
I
to it.
agree. And I always tell them that they will receive a 0, but then you know how many zeros I'll be giving? So I do allow some students to um redo it over, but yeah, it's hard to trust them. I don't know if
And
the
if they get
second
any in the
submission is a
purple,
true
no.
submission.
The second line, if they get the type 2, forget it.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about on the Turn It In report?
On the Turn It In report.
Yes.
any on the second one, because that is absolutely, I'm trying to cheat. AI wrote it. AI, now you're using a word. You're using an AI tool to help hide the fact that AI wrote it. So if you've got
Yes.
anything in there, no, it's you're not getting squat.
I think that's
Okay.
always where
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, because
well, and
when
I
I
would say,
get
yeah, ask your program chair about that, Professor Brito, because I know that, for instance, I've been asked to develop AI policy around new faculty orientation,
Well, you know
simply
what?
because we have new faculty that
Jody,
are coming in, and they need to know, okay, well, you know, where's the,
Jody,
I
this
mean,
is
and I think
really
we're all still
important.
trying to figure out what's the balance between, you know,
No, it's
students
more
learning
than
how to
that,
use the
Joni.
tool. Yeah.
It's more than that, because I got put on a PIP because a student complained that I
Oh,
gave her a 0 for 62%, and the school said, "Well, I didn't like the way you handled it." What do you mean? It's the same thing I do with everybody. They get a 0, and if they reach out to me, we'll have a meeting and so forth. We'll go over it, and I got written up for that. So yeah, it's a bit more important. They're not
wow.
letting.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
I
I'm
mean,
not. I'm not making light of the
this was
situation at all. Yeah.
punitive of. This is punitive. So the
Yeah.
school, has decided that for some reason to make that an example, but we don't have a policy. They say, "Oh, you didn't violate any policy, and no, you didn't do anything wrong," but still, we didn't like the way you handled it. What do you mean they didn't? And it was a weekend class, so I only had the student I only saw the student for like 4 hours. It's the only time I actually engaged
Ooh.
one-on-one with the student. And that week is the one the following assignment's the one they had a 62% AI score. So yeah, I think that's a bit more than just we don't have a policy. We don't have anything like that. And if the administration feels comfortable punishing someone like myself or something like that, I think it's a bit more serious than that.
Well,
Right.
I want to add one thing to that. And one of the things that I've tried to do is I'd love to get rid of AI, but it's in almost every business right now, and it would be, from my opinion, it's hard not to, when it's built into your word processor and elsewhere. So one of the things that I do that has seemed to be not 100% effective, but I would say 80 to 90% effective, is to generate the course or an assignment in advance in AI and give them what I call a negative exemplar, which is, here's all the things that AI is going to create. I'm going to show you what I already see. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to look for. And now I'm going to tell you what I'm going to request that you do. So you now see that I know that I understand what an AI generated essay or anything looks like. I'm going to show you specifically where it's falling, because it still hasn't gotten to the point of exemplar graduate level work. Okay, it's definitely high school level ChatGPT straight out, because you can massage it to get it there. But if I give you what I call a negative AI exemplar, I let them know in advance before they turn in a single item, I'm already going to analyze it. And you can look at my exemplar with all the red marks of what went wrong by allowing it to go through AI. Okay, that's number one. And that kind of like already puts them on guard. The second thing that I try to do is to say, and this goes back to the X team, is to say, whatever you do in pre-production of getting ideas or doing research, that's fine, as long as the final production, okay, the output is you, okay? If you want to use some agentic or other types of AI tools that will go out and search, they may not be as good if you're really good at Google Scholar or Web of Science, but they'll be better than not knowing what you're doing. It'll give you a broad overview. In that production, right, then you assemble the different things and the ideas, you compare it to your textbook, you compare it to your reading, and then you assemble it so that the final production is always you, okay? And if we do that in the very beginning of the course, and we set the standard, then the students have that structure to know where that red line is, because it's really vague with all the tools that are available. The fact that Grammarly and Copilot is built into your Office suite, so we have to be proactive and put it up front at the very beginning and set that boundary super clean. That's my 2 cents.
I
Second
I
2 cents.
want to add
Appreciate those
one thing,
examples,
by the
Dr.
way.
Kaufman.
to help folks is that, and something we're going to have a problem with, and that is I love Perlego. Perlego's got a lot of good things, but I don't know if you guys know, Turnitin does not follow books. So what happens is, let's say Dr. Christopher there writes a book, and Joni copies and pastes it. If she's the first one, she gets away with it. So if Brito copies and pastes Dr. Christopher's book, they're going to say, you copied Joni Mitchell's from the University of South Pacific or some obscure place. That's how that works, because the Turnitin doesn't capture books. And I think that we're going to be using more of it. Again, I'm not against Perlego. I don't want any negative on that. It's got a lot of very cool things about it, but we need to anticipate the future problems associated with it, because if people don't think they're not going to copy and paste, well, that's not in a reality that we know. But that way, if they get these obscure, like, and I used that South Pacific because it literally was one. I don't know anybody that went to that school. Well, okay, well, that's not what it, yeah, it just means you copied something that they copied. That's how that works. So I just want to let everybody know and be familiar with it.
Sometimes I use it to motivate the students. So I capture, let's say, 100% in the first assignment, 100% AI generated in the first assignment. So I go and say, okay, if you got, and they were asking me for second chance, of course, and my gap on the beginning say no second chance. Say, okay, I will give you second chance if you get in week 4 and week 7, which is the major 2 assignment. If you get 100% in week 4 and 7, then let's talk about, no promises. Then let's talk about week 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. So it does work. It does work. Then they are thinking, okay, let me behave, let me get the chance, let me do. It did work, I would say, like 70% of the times.
I think that's really helpful, Dr. Kaufman, what you were saying about your AI practice, the way you've actually set up your lessons, having that practice, having that policy in place. And this is where it gets really tricky, right? Like, we know that Westcliff faculty don't get many hours, right, to dedicate. And so we're always trying to think of like, okay, what's kind of the most efficient way? But that's really one of those practices. And the same thing with yours, Professor Baruti, like just knowing weeks, what is it, 4 and 7? Sorry, I was listening, I promise. Those being the weeks that okay, this is where students can redeem themselves, right? And the Perlego, Dr. Johnson, I made a note here because somebody did tell me that it's an issue, and then another person at another university said it's not an issue. It all depends on how your Turnitin is set up. But I do know that Perlego, well, okay, tell me how you all feel about this. Perlego has thousands and thousands and thousands of books, right? A student could look up, there's a book, they're going to copy and paste. If a student is going to do that, would they not just also just try to run things through ChatGPT? Like, I feel like that would, the same students, but I don't know, maybe you get a graduate student who's a little bit better at attempting plagiarism that way.
No, I think what's just like the way ChatGPT got, as soon as they told other students, that students learn that from other students. Students are going to learn that through other students as well. So, and no, by the way, that's always been that way when it comes to the regular Turnitin. That's nothing new with regard to the books. And if you think about when you see, anytime you see something that was on a regular Turnitin report from another student that's not from your school, especially, you know that's what they did. Right. You know, like, because I doubt they knew anybody from these other universities. They
that's
use the
really
common
good point
source.
to notice.
They'll do that also with even things like with other things as well. But that's the free zone, and there I would imagine the emphasis will be to leverage books more in the future because of this tool. I describe it to students as learn library for books, and really there's a lot. In fact, it's even got more tools in it because of be able to go right to the. I mean, it's great. I don't want. This is not a negative on Perlego whatsoever. In fact, Ryan from Perlego knows I'm a big fan of his. So, but it's just, more of a heads up. That way, because again, you'll get the student. I don't even know anybody there. Yeah, and and it's always big
Exactly.
chunks too. It's never like a couple of lines
That's
like
what I
a
was going to say. When you're
essay.
reading your
They're all
students'
big chunks.
papers and you see like this change of tone and everything, like that's a really good sign they've taken a big brick of something
Well, what
even
they don't
before we
understand
had
is,
Turnitin, right?
let me ask you this group here. In all honesty, like I'm going to ask Dr. Kaufman because I like him. And in all honesty, Dr. Kaufman, if you read his students especially the third paper, I'll bet you know who wrote that without even looking at the title, right? Or without looking at the name on the paper. You could probably figure out who wrote that in who wrote that paper. Would that be a correct assumption?
Listen, it's an interesting question. I would say, yeah. I would say about easily a third of the students I can tell within the first paragraph or two who wrote it. But that's particularly because they're bringing in a history and a perspective of how they're doing it. I get concerned, and I feel like I'm still a little naive on this. These students speak multiple languages, and sometimes whether I'm teaching it in person or online, they're holding back, right? And so their speech pattern can't be indicative of what their writing is, right? And I can't compare the two. So I have to go, there are times in which I have run it through multiple Zero GPT. I've run it, it's been through Turnitin, and I still can't tell. And I go, boy, this is written very well. They don't speak much, okay? And I can't, there's just not enough signals for me to know whether or not this is truly their own style or someone else's. I haven't gotten to that. Now there's a few that that do speak up, that have it. Well, I just taught global strategy. I had a couple of accountants and CFIs, and so they were very in depth in the metrics. I could see it at the very top, and it was very clear because they had a deep background in accounting, and so that kind of thing sticks out, whereas other individuals are more generic in their approach and their background. So it's kind of tricky, Dr. Johnson. I've gotten to a point of which I'm realizing I need to develop certain assessment tools with these students in the very beginning of the class, beyond the basic pre-biography kind of information, that I need to kind of decipher how many languages, what culture are they from, what is their path? Is this just for the F1 visa and they're just trying to just maintain it, or are they actually going to seize and try to utilize something from this course? And I haven't figured out the right pieces yet to get those signals to come out so that I can be a better professor at the assessment stage. And I think that's one of the things that I would say to everyone, is that we need to come up with a slightly better assessment in that first week, because we slam them with a lot of content. And there's not a huge opportunity to figure out where they're coming from in that first week, at least for me. I'm still trying to tweak it.
Yeah, I emphasize in my classes that of all the metrics we have, we tend to have the most leeway with the mechanics. Because I know, to your point, like I learned Tongan as an adult. So, when I talk to my class, I can give you any book, I'll tell my class, and your vocabulary is like this. But your vocabulary, what you use, may be like this. And because I know I'm Tongan. Certain areas, my vocabulary is bigger. And I said, the only thing that upsets me is if I click spell check and I'm fixing 10, 15 things on your paper, that's on you. But other than that, I don't expect you guys to write like you were born at Oxford and spent 15 years in Cambridge. So I don't want that to be the burden of that. I give templates for all my assignments to help them with that. I give them examples. I spend a lot of time on writing and the mechanics and APA formatting and things like that. Because after all, APA formatting is, let's face it, it's another foreign language. nobody's good at it. You got to get good at it. It's like learning Latin, right? Nobody's native Latin speaker. If you want to learn it, you got to start from scratch. And I try to put that expectation in the beginning. So like they're not worried that they believe that they need to use some other writing tool to have better English. We have a lot more leeway on that one. And that's what I tell them, at least in my classes, because of that. The rest of the stuff, as far as your ability to support the critical thinking is critical thinking. And I expect you to do it, not have ChatGPT do it for you.
What if, like, I have a question to this group here, like based on what Dr. Kaufman suggested. What if we created, like, in each class, you can either implement it into the syllabus or just do it as like you're within your authority as a professor into the class, just to create some exercises that utilize ChatGPT. Let them like go and use it. Like, hey, this is how you use ChatGPT in this specific task, but don't use it into your assignment, like given assignment, because I need you to learn that. But here an assignment, go ahead, use ChatGPT in it. Let's see how we can. Maybe you'll give, like, you have 10 students, you get 10 different questions because you don't want all of them give you the same answer, and just do it. It might take some work, but what do you think about this idea?
I'm going to jump in real quick, and it's something I've been considering. I have a certain model of information processing, and one is in discovery and gathering information. I think if we were to include certain prompts to help them use different tools, and then include and require them to include that in an appendix to show what they've already looked up. So they are showing us the initial work, right? And seeing the initial generation. And that appendix, okay, of what they got from those prompts, they can refer to it, right? Either in the building of it or literally citing it. But at least then we have what they got, right? We got the statements, we got the paragraphs, we got the sentences, we got the phrasing. And we can look then when that final paper is done, and particularly if it's a multi-generational course where you start off with, different sections and they build a capstone, if we can see that in the beginning and they have to use it and put it in an appendix, an AI appendix, they're going to be held to that. It's that secrecy of we not knowing what they've done. But if we see and we incorporate it, then they're using the tool, I would think, correctly, in that it's helping them broaden their scope and seeing different resources. But if they include it, the output of those prompts that we give them, then we're not playing in the gray area of crossing our fingers and hoping we can detect it. We're forcing them to show it to us up front, and then holding them their feet to the fire at the end saying, well, it looks like you copied it, right? Or it looks identical to what you already generated, right? And I think if we do that, I think we can solve a lot of problems.
Some very good recommendations. Thank you, everyone. I'm kind of dropping the ball here. Lots of really good comments in the chat. Dr. Atwi said, I encourage students to present different perspectives when replying to their peers' responses to the discussions, right? Building in that, not disagreeing, but looking at different perspectives, building in that other side, showing students, and then even modeling for them. I know some faculty are a little reluctant to do this, but sometimes even playing devil's advocate in the discussion yourself and modeling like, hey, this could be a good thing to kind of expand our ideas and our understanding. Professor Vagia says, also students can use website AI reviewer so they can identify AI usage and do changes before submitting to GAP. This is a big deal. I think that this is one of the things in the Light Center that we really want to encourage professors to use AI and think about how AI fits in with their courses, because our students are learning so much about tools like this. And that's one of my biggest things. Two things really. One, students will continue to use it. You may or may not notice and like Dr. Coffin was saying, better to kind of have some sort of process to the best of your ability where you understand it up front. And then I don't know, I think it also kind of can make you feel a little less tricked when you get that paper that uses the words highlight and fosters like 40 times, because ChatGPT, that's what it likes to do. But yeah, just understanding some of the tools for yourself. But I also am not, I'm very aware that maybe AI doesn't fit in with every subject area and every course. I do can see that side as well. Dr. Johnson said, I lost my chat here. I like because we have to earn their second chance instead of giving them a second chance. Yeah, if you have processes where they have to go back, like Professor Broody was talking about,
Yeah,
and show
that's what that
themselves.
was referring to, is Dr.
Yeah,
Broody.
that was a really good point. Does your retake policy require growth, right? And how can you build that into your classes? I think that's a really good point. Kind of looking at the differences between peer-reviewed, utilizing resources. Professor Brito, thank you for bringing that up. Taking your students, having them go to the library, having them go to the writing center, making sure they understand the resources that they pay for. Dr. Bahiri says she starts the course by notifying the student the limitation of using AI. Yeah, a lot of our students still think that AI is the best thing since sliced bread. They don't understand until they get that first D on a paper just how much like doing their own work and being able to use the tool effectively, or even write the paper themselves, can yield a better result. Dr. Kaufman said we need at least the graduate level to get them to live in Google Scholar to understand the journal peer review work. What do you mean by that, Dr. Kaufman?
Well, finishing out this course, I had a lot of individuals, particularly not realizing what peer review meant, right? Not understanding that a textbook is not peer review. Yeah, there's editors, but it's not the same as a peer review. And the syllabus in MGT 500 is very clear. You have to have anywhere between 3 to 5 peer review pieces of work that you're referencing to, right? And so they should be living in Google Scholar, right? Because not all of it, but the vast majority of it is journal trades. And they also need to understand that dissertation, while in Google Scholar, is not peer reviewed, right? So they need to understand that, and they need to particularly because there's so many cool things about Google Scholar. It's so fast, it's so broad, and they would have their APA format done. It's a simple click and grab. So, they need to, I would say every student at the graduate level should be very familiar with Google Scholar, particularly with the kind of courses that we have, so they can quickly grab that content. And get those peer reviews on knocking them down grades, or at least fractional grades, because they're not meeting the basics of the syllabus, which is peer review referenced articles. So they should live in Google Scholar. That's my point.
A good point. Do any of you have other tools like that you use that you say, okay, here's what can help you? I had a professor once who had recommended, excuse me, sorry, had recommended, I think it's Chegg before they got really bad with the plagiarism. But they used to have an APA generator that you could actually go through and like, okay, here's my resource. And he would show how, okay, you could put in however you think it's formatted, try that, right? Don't just have it do it for you because you won't learn and it's just going to take you longer because you'll always need this tool. And that was kind of the point that he would make, is like, learn how to use the tool to where you don't have to be dependent upon it. That's kind of the other fear around AI, is if we're so dependent upon it, if it in our personal lives, if it always makes our grocery list and it always makes our meal plan, well, we know how to meal plan, right? This was an example that was given to me, and how much more so in an academic setting. So but yeah, do any of you have tools like that you like to share, the way that Dr. Kaufman talks about Google Scholar, and making sure that your students utilize it well?
One thing I want to add to piggyback on what you just said, though, I believe the same thing. Like when you're doing qualitative coding, you should be able to do it manually, not again, large math, because if you do it manually, then if you use it to like Atlas TI or NVivo, it's much better. You're much better using it because you know how even coding works. I mean, you've done it manually. So I agree with you.
Go ahead, Professor
Wonder,
Amarin.
I wonder why,
Oh,
what,
sorry. Oh, Dr. Tano, go ahead.
I wonder why Google Scholar was not chosen instead of Pepper Logo.
Perlego's new to us, so that probably would be another one that you could incorporate. Obviously, we're all gonna have to incorporate that at this point. But yeah, good point. Like there's lots of tools in Perlego now, and uses in Perlego. I do encourage all of you to go in. Dr. Showerhead has sent out that email with all the links into Acorn, so you can go in and view those. We know that 25-minute speed through on Perlego that most of you attended is probably not going to be enough. But you
Wow,
know, you
that
at least
was
have the
like
recording.
way
Yeah,
too
that was
much
it was a
for
lot of information.
an hour. It
Jessica's
reminded
really,
me.
really good. Yeah.
Have you ever used Canvas?
Not for research, but Professor Amarin has his hand up, so I just want to make sure I give him the floor to have some time there.
Thank you. I think we are, I mean, not think we are living at the age of AI. AI age, and we couldn't prevent this age. We are living in this age, in this environment. So we have to be very confident that we are living in AI. So now, regarding the AI, and if we connect the AI aid with Bloom's taxonomy, the remembering the first level of Bloom's taxonomy, now it is we don't need that, because in one moment you can recall all information. You can recall all information. So what we need, we need the other 5 levels: critical thinking, to be creative. So this is the way how we can keep our students in this context. So we have to explain to our students, they have to be creative, they have to be critically thinkers, and they are good writers, good academics, good professors in the future. So we don't have to, good, you remember this formula, you remember this information, you remember that. No, they have to know how to use peer-reviewed references, peer-reviewed articles, books, data, qualitative, quantitative, all this, how to use that, but not they are skilled in that, so they remember that. So now our duty as professors to keep our students in the new environment, which is critical thinking. If it was before not the main context of our educational process, now it is the main, it is the pivotal thing. It is, and we have to keep our students, remember that they are here to know or to gain or to have good skills in academic writing and in any writers, to be authors, writers, creative people. So this is the new environment. Thank you.
I thought I was muted. I'm sorry. I'm like looking to unmute myself. I'm already unmuted. Thank you, Dr. Amarin. I appreciate that. And that's really, those of you who are familiar with Bloom's, if you need some information on Bloom's taxonomy, we do have some things in Acorn that can help you. But I think that that's a really important way to look at it, right? Like, how are we getting towards the top? How are we getting our students out of those lower levels? If you are using the flipped classroom, Dr. Johnson mentioned the flipped classroom earlier, like it, you know, you're essentially flipping that pyramid as well. You're asking them to come into the class and create, not just for their assignments at home, but to be able to do that. And that speaks to this, you know, observing and facilitating, right? Once you kind of set that norm of like, this is what you're here to do. You're not here to just memorize. I think that's a really good reminder. Dr. Johnson, you were mentioning back to our Perlego chat, Canvas. I thought I was thinking Canva when you said it. I'm sorry.
Oh, just from the standpoint, like Canvas has a zillion different things it can do. And if you know 10% of them, like you're a genius. You know, it's like Excel. If you know 5% of what Excel can do, you're on the deep end of the gene pool IQ wise. I mean, this going through that class yesterday with all the different things that Perlego could do, It was like I'm not going to remember this. It just had so many things that it could do, and it was a bit overwhelming for a half an hour class.
I know. Those of you who hung in there were like, I know some faculty actually had it open while she was clicking through things and trying to click on the same things. You know, I don't know how you did it because she was moving fast. But yes, there are
Yeah,
so
I
many
was
wonderful
lost.
tools. And I think as you dive into it more, again, please do check out those tools, the trainings and materials in Acorn, because I think it will help you. Dr. Kaufman made a really good point. Moving beyond Bloom's and looking at Marzano's higher order thinking. We actually, those of you, I'm just going to do a little shameless plug here. If you missed our session for PLC, Marzano's work came up quite a bit, and you can find some of those resources in Acorn as well. Go ahead, Professor Amarin.
Thank you. I think also Morzano's skills and what he talking about theory, Marzano's theory, it is also connected at a new level of Bloom's taxonomy. So we couldn't say this is separate of that. So both of them in the same context. So I agree with you because maybe Marzano's also get improved according to AI level to AI level for now. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I love that when we can kind of utilize theory in our space. One more point here that I forgot to click on, emphasize team accountability and mutual support. When you're talking about, you know, kind of that interdependence that came up in the article, that was really important. Let's see. Want to take a couple minutes here to just talk to you about a little bit of what is coming up in the Light Center. So I would love to see as you join as many of these events as you possibly can. Talk series, I'm going to be doing a makeup for my April talk that did not happen. I will be popping in on Friday to share a little bit about empowering student voice strategies for effective student-led discussions. Got some really great feedback and notes and ideas from those of you who've been teaching at Professional Weekend. And again, you know, thinking about different groups of students, we'll talk about that a little bit. Session 5, Professional Learning Community, is going to be all about the flipped learning in practice. Now, we're going to be joined by Dr. Mary Broding. Once again, we're very fortunate to have her join us for these meetings. She's from our Learning and Experience Design team. If you don't know her, she's quite fantastic. She's also a professor at a couple different colleges. And she has quite a bit that she wants to share about flipped learning, kind of what we're getting wrong, what we can get right, how we can improve. And so we're going to be engaging in that topic, and hopefully you will come and bring your experiences, and we will have some good discussions and share some really great solutions. On the 27th of May, we'll be meeting back here again for our reading club. We'll be talking all about moving students from those passive learners to active participants and how to encourage student agency through reflection. We've talked a little bit about reflection here today. It's such a really great process, the way you can incorporate it. It's one of those things that I really wish was built into the curriculum more, but it's definitely on faculty to be able to kind of implement really good reflection activities. And then finally, on the 23rd of May, actually before that reading club, we'll be talking about research pathways and opportunities, scholarship at Westcliff University. Those of you who don't know, we have SOAR coming up. The registration for SOAR is open now. Let me know if you need that link. Once again, thank you everybody who came, shared ideas. We appreciate you so much. Please do complete the survey. I'm going to go ahead and pop it into the chat right now. Please do complete the survey. You'll have an option in there to get your certificate emailed directly to you and a copy of these slides if you like. We didn't get through all of them today, but we had so many wonderful ideas and examples, and it's always fantastic to hear what you all are doing here at Westcliff. And I hope to see you at the next event, Faculty Lounge on Friday. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.